Hello, this is Derek from Entertainment Stew, and I've been replaying Dragon Age Origins, and I want to talk about weapons. Anyone who has played an RPG, especially something like the Dragon Age series, knows how it goes. You start out in rags and usually find a basic sword in order to get out of the dungeon. You quickly start fighting better swords until you eventually are fully clad in shiny glass armor and have the most amazingly ornate sword in all of Thedas. We see this time and time again in many other fantasy-themed RPGs. The basic sword seldom cuts it, and there's a continual push to upgrade to bigger, better weapons. While playing Dragon Age Origins recently and playing the Human Noble Origin, I found that I went a long time before I even thought about changing up my basic family sword. Now, I didn't really think about it at first, but I found in retrospect that it actually felt pretty good to not worry about finding the best possible swords while playing the game. I was able to focus on the quest and story more since I was less worried about gear. This led me to wonder if it would be more interesting for fantasy RPG developers to try and make a game where you pretty much don't ever really need to outright change the sword you use, perhaps even your armor as well. The idea would be that, in its most basic form, a sword is a sword. As long as it is in good repair, it will chop up enemies just the same way as any other. This could open up the game up to two interesting avenues. One, it allows for more focus to be put on upgrading the sword. You can go to a blacksmith and have special abilities added via whatever you like, runes or whatever. Two, it would increase the sense of ownership over the weapon. You could come to trust your sword in a way that is simply not possible in a game that constantly pushes you to switch up for the more shiny ones that come along. The more I think about it, the more I actually think it will work really well. Normally in fantasy stories, a weapon is considered great because of what it and its owner have achieved. However, when it comes to RPGs and games, the opposite is true. A great weapon is great because it was hidden away in some dungeon. The player has no real attachment to it apart from having to go through the process of finding it. A system like this could change that and fit it better with the norms of fantasy stories. In fact, I think there are plenty of interesting ways your equipment can become more important/personal. I'm not sure what has or hasn't already been done, but I immediately thought of a few pie-in-the-sky ideas and interesting ways to make your equipment more interesting. What about having your weapon or equipment gain attributes as you have encounters throughout a game? For instance, you could slay a giant venomous snake, and the weapon you use gains a poison attribute, or survive an encounter with a dragon's fire breath and your chest piece gains fire resistance. Or maybe you can have your weapons and equipment change their appearance as they grow. Again, as with the above example, maybe there are certain fights that will change the look of a weapon. You kill a boss/legendary monster that happens to have blue blood, which stains the blade forever. Or when you journey to a reclusive elvish tribe/wizard that can magically alter your blade to glow when enemies are near. Maybe you can name your equipment, have the name known throughout the game world, have it inserted into NPC dialogue, on posters, and books. All of this adds an extra layer of immersion to a role-playing experience. You force the player to carve out their own legacy within the game world. And when it comes to role-playing games, that's just the thing that matters the most. This has been Derek from Entertainment Stew, signing off.